Today's video is sponsored by Ground News. More from them in a bit. Primitive man had few ways to learn about what was going on in the world of video games. You couldn't just check your Reddits, your tweeters, your fun books or Tic Tacs. No, see, in the before times, there were these things called magazines. These magazines were constructed out of some strange, flimsy substance derived from the trees, printed on with ink and distributed semi-regularly to subscribers. Once a month, or week, or year, they would be mailed out through the postal service, and the subscribers of these publications could read up on all the new happenings in the gaming industry. What new Mario got announced this month? Is Sonic dead yet? See, gaming magazines had a fundamental flaw that they never seemed to be able to overcome, and that was the fact that they were magazines. You couldn't update them in real time. If you, the reader, wanted the news, you had to wait until the next issue to get the news. Wait a month to find out what happened a month ago. By contrast, the internet does not work like this. You can just slap a few buttons, willy wham wazzle, and boom, all the world's information at your fingertips. The magazines would have a hard time competing with this, and they didn't. They just died, replaced by a new wave of hip and in-the-now websites that not only appealed to the gamers, but to all the new followers of this mainstream geek culture. Yes, in the words of the immortal Huey Long and his Newsies, it was now hip to be square. Big money was to be made by talking about the new comic book movies, the new Star Wars, a Lord of the Rings or two. Nerd culture was big business, and everybody wanted in. These early sites were generally founded by writers and journalists from those traditional gaming magazines, people who knew that the internet was going to take over and just decided it was time to jump ship. In the hype of the dot-com boom, media conglomerates jumped at the chance to buy up all this new media. And while the bubble did burst, and not everybody made it out on top, it was clear by the mid-2000s that these gaming magazines, tech magazines, those were all definitively on the way out, and the websites were here to stay. Now, it wasn't just because the websites were faster at getting the news to people. They could offer podcasts, web shows, up-to-date coverage on more niche topics, because they didn't have to worry about the physical limitations of having only so many papers in a magazine. By every metric, magazines could not compete. And it makes sense that eventually they faded away for the most part. I have to imagine that the websites and the owners of these websites were feeling pretty good about the future by the start of the 2010s. The rise of the smartphone meant that billions of potential users could instantly access these sites. Social media meant broader outreach, finding new potential readers every day. Everything's coming up Milhouse. Until it wasn't. But you know what is coming up, Milhouse? I'm excited to have Ground News as a continued sponsor because, well, I really like them. I use the site all the time. Ground News is an independent and transparent platform, not funded by big tech. It compiles the news stories from 50,000 sources from all across the world and lets you know at a glance the political leaning and factuality of all these different organizations. Ground News is supported by subscribers and individual investors who believe in the mission to let you come to your own conclusions on the issues of the day, rather than get manipulated by sources with ulterior motives. Take the story of when the voice of Mario stepped down. Sites with mixed credibility would just speculate without any validity on what would happen next. Oh, Chris Pratt's gonna replace him. They're just making things up. But Ground News tells you this one's factual, this one's a little bit less so. Ground News directly gets past the sensationalism and shows you the stories. It also gives you quite a bit of insight on how these news companies try and get your clicks. What information is conveniently left in or out of stories depending on a site's political leaning. With Ground News, you don't have to worry about any of that because you'll see stories from all over the political spectrum and get a far more objective, well-rounded, and dare I say, better perspective on everything. On absolutely everything. So go to ground.news/husk to see all sides of every story. Get 30% off their unlimited Vantage plan or try out their Pro plan for less than $1 a month. I'm telling you, go do this. Go do this. Go do this. It shouldn't be that much of a surprise to any of you that gaming journalism, entertainment news, all of this stuff isn't doing so well right now. People don't really seem to like them anymore. And the websites are shutting down. The journalists are getting replaced by the robots. It's just not good all around. Now, I'm not the first person to be brave and bold enough to make a video about what's wrong with gaming journalism. To be honest, I've avoided this topic for a long time because it's just really low-hanging fruit. It's an easy target to rip on because everybody wants to see them get ripped on. I mean, it's gaming journalism, right? Kotaku and IGN. It's cringe. Turns out covering the news is really only about one thing: timing. Being on time, specifically. Let's use an example. Say a big story breaks. Nintendo is buying Disney. Yeah, I don't know how it works. Nintendo's buying Disney, though. That's the story. Now, that's a big story. It has a lot of potential ramifications. What is Nintendo gonna do to Disney? What will Disney contribute to Nintendo? How will this affect future games, future films? There's a lot to unpack here. How will Microsoft and Sony respond? What's Nintendo's long-term game plan? What's gonna happen to ESPN, to Hulu, to blah, boo, bleep, boo, blue? You gotta go through a lot of old articles, old interviews, investor reports, and try and find all these different angles to really form a cohesive story. And that could take a while. It could take a few days, it could take a few weeks. And by the time you've written all of that up and you got this amazing detailed analysis of the story, it's already old news. Every other website has already covered it. Every YouTuber has already posted their unscripted thoughts on the subject. The news cycle is past, buddy. You're late. You missed the boat. Even worse, there's a chance that mere hours after you finish this grand essay about Nintendo buying Disney, the deal could still fall through. There could be some new report how all these facts were fabricated, a lie. Throws a wrench in the whole thing, ruining not only the story, but wasting weeks of your life, weeks of work for which you will never be paid. You are punished for trying to make something good. And this is the central problem to why gaming journalism is the way it is. The more time you put into a story, the more effort, the more risk becomes a factor. These stories aren't supposed to be insightful. They're content. I mean, pretty much anything in news is that, right? Disposable. By the very nature of dealing with current events, you expect that these works will be read or viewed once and never again. Any additional effort beyond the bare minimum is just... it's too much of a risk. It's detrimental. And the only thing that matters is that you get it out first. Because when those people see a news headline, a story, they might click on that story, or they might not, but you can guarantee that they won't read a story on one website and then go to another website and read another website's take on that same story, another author's take on that same story. It doesn't matter if this second website had way more insights and less spelling errors. Speed is the only thing that matters. What catches the eye first? And in this sense, quality is actively discouraged. The only goal is to get that shit out fast. And the way you do that is just by parroting press releases handed out by the publishers. Not everybody plays video games. Statistically, like half of the planet kinda plays video games or has played a video game at least once, but most of these people only play free-to-play phone games. A small minority of those people play games that aren't on the phone, and a small minority of those people play something that isn't just a free-to-play browser game. And a small minority of those people pay to play any video game. And a small minority of those people play something that isn't GTA or Fortnite or Apex Legends or Roblox or Madden or Call of Duty. It is really difficult to say how many people on the planet are not only interested in video games, but interested to such a degree that they actively will seek out news about the industry. I can guarantee you it's probably not that many people. And even then, not everybody's interested in the same games. This isn't like real news, you know, like geopolitical news. It doesn't affect everybody. Not everyone is going to be interested in the same things. In stories that are monumental to an industry. Traditional news media have learned that by picking a specific political leaning and just rolling with it, by ensuring that the audience is always on their side, they can get that audience to return. They can improve their viewership. But gaming journalism can't always work like this. The best equivalence would be the console war. People feel passionate about which plastic box is better, and as silly as all this sounds, it's big money. These console warriors can help keep the lights on. People will get in fights, they will share the article, they'll debate, engagement rises, and the website makes more money. Now you might look at this and say, well, that's kind of shitty. Why do the websites do this? Are they just greedy little bastards? Probably not. Most of the shit that people hate about these websites are not flaws or miscalculations or necessarily even derived from greed. A lot of it's survival tactics. Do have one thing to add here real quick. Don't worry about why I'm a cat. I gotta talk about the political angle here, the politics in the gaming journalism. Now, I've heard that these opinion pieces, the controversial opinion pieces saying like, I don't know, Luigi's Mansion is racist, that kind of stuff makes more money than any of the real news. I'm being serious. These websites have to rely on these opinion pieces because the real news isn't gonna get shared around. It gets lost in the shuffle as people just share the information without citing the original source. But for this, everyone's gonna say, hey, look what Kotaku said. Look at the stupid thing Kotaku said. Let's go make fun of them in the comments because they're so stupid. Because they are stupid, but they want you to think that. They want you to click on the article so they make more money. Most people just want to hear when GTA 6 is gonna get announced, when the new Battle Pass is dropping for Garbo 2, or when the review embargo finally lifts for that highly anticipated console exclusive. Oh, those reviews. Gaming reviews, film reviews, all of that has always been controversial because, you know, it's reviews. It's putting a number on a thing, on a piece of art. Kind of weird, kind of a weird concept when you think about it. But it's now more controversial than ever because it was revealed that, to nobody's surprise, that film studios were just kind of paying out reviewers to give good scores. Yeah, this does happen, and it's been suggested many times in the past that this kind of practice also happens in gaming as well. But to be honest, they don't really even need to do that. I'm not gonna say that Activision isn't paying off websites to give Call of Duty good reviews, but you really don't need Bobby Boy over here to run over to IGN and hand them a check just to get an 8 out of 10. You don't need Bob Iger to throw around some cash so everybody gives the new Incredibly Hulk film a 100 on Metacritic. It's a lot more complicated than that. Let's not pretend like these websites are truly objective, independent sources for like, you know, for anything. I'm sorry, I thought this was obvious, but a website that's plastered in ads for Funko Pops for Marvel movies is probably not, you know, like the Scientific American over here. It's not gonna be impartial. This is not a journal. This is a website plastered in ads for Funko Pops. And this isn't anything new either, you know, like Nintendo Power. That was actually made by Nintendo. It existed to sell Nintendo shit. Game Informer is owned by GameStop. Oh, Saints Row got a great review. Oh, turns out there's an exclusive deal with GameStop for content. Wonder how that happened. These websites are pretty clearly third-party marketing machines for the big publishers and film studios, right? Right? Because they have to be. Otherwise, they couldn't exist. Okay, so here's how reviews are handled for something like an upcoming movie. Disney goes up to a website and says, hey, we're gonna let one of your writers come and see our new Star Wars. And then the website says, okay, sounds good. They send their writer to Hollywood, they go to the red carpet premiere, they see the stars, they meet the robots, they have a good time. And then they get to see the film in a setting, the best possible setting, where the cast and crew of that film are cheering along at every turn. And then they go back to their fancy, all expense paid hotel rooms and have to decide what to write. If they say the movie was bad, well, Disney might not invite them back for the next Star Wars. Worse, Disney could just blacklist them from seeing any Disney films early, and this would really end up hurting the website they work for, because again, when it comes to these reviews, timing's everything. If you're not first, you're last. You also gotta consider that Disney's paying for a lot of the actual banner ads on your website. Gonna pay for exclusive content and promotional material. There is a clear symbiotic relationship between the publishers, the film studios, and the media covering them. If you give the Star Wars a good review, the website will be happy, Disney will be happy, and everybody makes money. Now look, sometimes websites will give bad reviews, really bad reviews, but they have to weigh their options. A bad review will generate way more clicks if the product was something that was highly anticipated. Now, if the website is willing to risk this blacklist, or they think they have enough leverage over the studio, they can just go with the bad review. IGN can't just give 10 out of 10 to every Ant-Man movie, because if they did, the audience wouldn't trust them. The same thing applies to video games as well, obviously. Give games a bad review, they might not send you a review copy. They might not give you early promotional material. You have to play by the rules. Not every review is going to be completely, dictated by this, but it's certainly a consideration. And because of that, this was never going to be impartial. Because how could it be? If they step out of line, oops, that's it, you just lost a shit ton of revenue. And the company that owns your company, that owns that website, isn't going to be very happy about that. Again, not every journalist does this, and I don't even know if every journalist would know this, but it seems pretty clear by just looking at who reviews what, that the editors are picking out certain writers to review certain products if they know they're going to get a certain score. Like, if you need a bad review for a platformer game, give it to the guy who only plays strategy games. If you need the new Batman movie to get a great review, give it to the Batman fan. Is it disingenuous? Is it lying? Maybe, but it's not really journalism. It is marketing. It's entertainment in the form of marketing. Even if you disregard all of this, consider that this whole industry is just about telling you about new products that you can buy. Again, huge thanks to Ground News for their continued support of my channel. Go to ground.news/husk to see all sides of every story. Link is in the description. Go check it out.